So let's get into it now with Bitcoin. I want to follow up on the last 24 hours of analysis, as yesterday I put out a video of what I believed the potentially worst scenario could be if we had a few confirmations that were going to happen last night. Those confirmations had to do, one, with the 5-day stochastic momentum charts over here, of which no, that was not validated. We did not see the closure below 36,300, nor, or actually that was the only one that we had in the last 24 hours that could have led into the next set of, of confirmations that would have allowed me to start to position towards a move like that over the next few months. The next few ones, which are still relevant, but I don't believe that they're, but seen as the 5-day stochastic momentum has not been confirmed, are going to become a little bit less likely here, a little bit less probabilistically likely, is going to be the monthly 20 simple, as you can see, as Bitcoin does remain above it, which is just under $37,000. So that's still going to be relevant coming into Monday closure for the month. However, as long as Bitcoin does retain above these major levels, I do look for this rally to continue a little bit further to the north side on the shorter term timeframes. However, with that in mind, need to be very, very careful here. Nothing's really changed as far as the medium and higher term timeframe ranges have gone. If we go over here to our daily chart, you will notice that Bitcoin is, more or less playing in the same regions. And the same chart that we've been working off of for the last 3 weeks now, it's literally the same thing. It's literally the same thing over here. When you get rid of all the wicks and whatnot that we've seen in the last week, which you can kind of just visualize by looking at the candle bodies, you will notice that, well, Bitcoin came down exactly to our level, which was the 618 Fibonacci retracement, coming off the high of $45,000 to the low of about $33,000 over the last month or so. We've seen this move play out, and so far so good, bouncing off this region, and we are getting our first target met to the $40,000 region based off of a bounce of the 618. Now, I should denote that on this more short-term time frame look right here, which I'm just going to zero in on it, the 382 Fibonacci retracement is essentially a continuation point for the same direction of trend. That does imply that if Bitcoin does start to reject from this region, which we haven't necessarily seen just yet, I would not consider this a rejection as is. Could it turn into one? Yes, indeed. We'll overlay validation conditions for that soon enough. It's going to be very similar to what we saw in the 5-day and, of course, the monthly as well, which matter for the higher term timeframes. But in this case, as long as Bitcoin does play below $40,000, any sort of a potential rejection around that region would imply that we do see the resumation of the trending move to the downside. In this case, same target's going to be relevant as before, very likely another move back down to the lows, and at that point I'd probably be looking at a break of the lows. Until that happens though, I do think that Bitcoin boulos on the short term timeframes, you're going to see a bit of an ebb and flow. Very short term, like very, very short term, probably going to be a bit of a pullback right here, but pullbacks can come into a higher low status. So with that in mind, where would I be looking for a higher lows if Bitcoin boulos are going to take advantage of this? Well, anywhere around about $37,000. Why is $37,000 important for the short term? Well, again, coming into the end of the monthly closure on Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we will see, we'll see whether Bitcoin closes above the 20 simple or not on the monthly. If it does, then I do think that Bitcoin boulos still have a chance, I suppose. If it does not, then historically speaking, that has led into the next half year to a year of typical major downside movements. All of the ones that we can call out right here, alongside that, not daily, but monthly MACD cross to the downside. So you can see this one over here from August 2014. You can see this one over here from May, June to 2018. We can see the one over here from January, February of 2020, and then also one going on over here. But until we get that next closure below the 20 simple, that is what essentially made it more actionable as far as a long-term analysis goes. Until that happens, I will refrain from getting, or at least positioning myself towards major downside. Doesn't mean that it can't happen, but for right now, again, referencing that 5-day stochastic momentum chart that we were looking at yesterday, none of this has been confirmed, none of this has been validated. So while it is a potential idea, it is still not actionable, at least in the way that I look at things. And for what it's worth, on the other side, when we do reference the other lower term timeframes in reference to the 5-day, not only are we going to see the 5-day timeframe stay with momentum to the upside on a rather powerful timeframe, might I add, but we're going to see the daily actually freshly cross up here too, with and will be remain with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin's above $35,000. 2-day is going to be also still corrective here to be fair. $44,000 going to be the magical number. Probably not happening anytime soon, but I would be looking for that to probably swing around maybe next week, assuming that Bitcoin doesn't initiate the validations for those downside conditions. And then of course we already saw the 5-day, and then the weekly, which is going to be closing today for CME, will very likely remain with upside momentum as long as Bitcoin remains above $35,000. So these pivoted numbers going to be very, 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 very important going onwards and forwards here. However, I do want to bring up something that I think is really important that is over here on the Krown trading application that does start to ignite the potential of a major shift in long-term conditions. And what we're seeing right now is the global open interest coming down. We've seen the global open interest come down day over day for the last couple weeks here, actually going back to our highs at $45,000. But the specific interest that I'm having right now is over the last 24 to 48 hours, where we saw the global open interest come down to new lows on this move, alongside Bitcoin price action moving up, I think like 15 to 20%. Let's see what it is from low to high. Yeah, 16.34% right there. So what does that imply? With open interest coming down, price action going up? Well, a little bit of short liquidations, I imagine, for the late shorters who are probably front running a big bad breakdown. Again, could probably still happen if we do get those validations coming in on Monday, but for right now, all good. And two, it would also imply that a lot of people who were probably short from much higher, they probably let go of those positions, or whether it was 40,000 plus, or people who are holding shorts from like way long ago, way back on over here. Those people are likely taking profits. So, and I think that's the people who typically are going to be moving and running direction on an asset like this. So that is actually a big shift in dynamics, because we haven't really seen that before. And that was one of the ways that I was looking for on this channel over the last month and a half, for open interest to unwind while we see price action go up. If we see something like that, that is a shift in macro, or I wouldn't say macro conditions, but it's a shift in potentially long-term conditions. Again, though, here's the problem with what we're looking at right now. I would not feel comfortable, personally speaking, calling any sort of a major reversal here as long as Bitcoin is below a very specific region on, at minimum, a daily closure, perhaps even a 12 hour as well. And it would be this, again, referencing this bearish retracement right here. I would be looking at the 618, which is at 41,500 as a major region. You can also notice that the green 55 exponential average is going to start to swing around that region as well. And as long as Bitcoin's below there, this is still technically or potentially, another, another setup for a trending move to the downside. Obviously, the 382, which we referenced earlier, just below about $39,000, would be on a much more aggressive move, we would expect, and that would very likely need to lead to new lows if we saw a rejection around there. However, right around the 41,500-ish region right here, that's where things change around, and where I'd feel, or not where I'd feel, but where I'd validate a very likely reversal on the higher term timeframes in this case. Remember, we already see all of the higher term timeframe momentum oscillators starting to head to the upside. If we go over here, I think even the 4-hour jewel was having a pretty good signal off of yesterday's low. I would not call this like you can't really be looking for a major reversal based off a 4-hour signal, but this was a pretty damn good signal nonetheless. And I think the daily might be setting up. No, it's not necessarily setting up for a full-on signal just yet, but it does have a potential to get that cyan signature relatively soon. Problem is that volatility looks like it's probably going to go into a bit of a contraction phase. So that is why I do still keep open my eyes and ears, or just open towards the probability that we could see this obviously land into a downside move. What would validate it on a shorter term time frame? In this case, yesterday we did say below 34,500 on a 4-hour closure. In this case, I would say we could probably move that up to about $36,000 on a 4-hour closure. Below there, I do look for this asset to continue on with. I would not just consider this like your next daily lower high, or not necessarily lower high, but next daily rejection alongside the 382, but very likely continuation of the trending move to the downside. At that point, have to be looking at the macro range lows, between about around $30,000 essentially. Until then, I do think that short-term boo laws have a bit of a bit of an upper hand, I suppose. I mean, we did play a little bit of regular bullish evidence on the 12-hour right here, but I should denote this here in the sense that yes, on the 4-hour time frame, we do see, we do see my my settings right there. No, we do see that there will be potential hidden bearish evidence if Bitcoin does confirm a local high right here. How would you confirm a local high on the 4-hour? Earliest I'd say that you could do that would be if you go over here to an hourly with an hourly closure below about 37,400. So again, we're talking about very low term timeframes now. I would say that that's probably the earliest that I could do. And then at that point, I'd be looking for that $36,000 region to be tested. Of course, again, I still would not feel comfortable calling like major continuation to new lows until Bitcoin closed below there on a 4-hour. But for right now, you can see that, a lot of things are going on. And realistically, again, I want to reiterate my position that the validations for major downside continuation based off that 5-day signal that we were looking at yesterday, they have not been hit. The monthly, obviously going to be clarified on Monday, is so far so good. We are, I think, about over $2,000 above that pivot. Well, actually very close to $2,000 in this case. 36,900 is the magical number right there. Just want to see Bitcoin close above that region. If that happens, I would probably be looking for March trade sideways at worst, and probably a little bit of upside. And then I would call a reversal on the higher term timeframes at earliest with any sort of a 12-hour or daily closure above 41,500. That's a 618 right there. Full on confirmation, no questions asked. Targets up to low, mid, maybe even mid $50,000 territory with any sort of a closure on a daily above 44.5 or a 4-hour above $45,000. So those are the same conditions that we've been having for the past almost month now. So ultimately, what is this essentially saying? I would not, it's like on one side, I would not be on the same side of people who are calling this like the low immediately right now. I think that's a little bit too premature to be doing. At the same time, I'm not getting those continuation signals for any major downside moves just yet. I think at earliest, they're really going to be coming in early March at this moment. Until then, probably a bit of sideways. And on the very short term time frame ranges, you can still be looking at this region right here, 39,500, probably even on an hourly closure as well. Although I have been refraining from using very low term timeframes recently, just because things have been quite volatile, and this situation that's going on in the world, that can really change a lot of things incredibly fast. I suppose I would be looking at that as a gateway towards about just over $41,000. So that does imply that Bitcoin does close an hourly above, let's call it 39.5. I would be looking for a test somewhere around 41,000 even to 41,500. Obviously, that can put the daily in a position, to potentially reverse at that point. So that's kind of the way that I see it right now. I'm actually not really making any major decisions myself, just to talk about my own trading behavior at this current moment in time. I'm only taking very, very short-term time frame trades. I'm not interested in playing long-term positions here, both to the upside nor the downside, because I just don't feel that my edge is going to be as good on those timeframes when we do have situations like we have right now going on in the world. Because it really, if things were to really escalate, kiss any sort of short-term or medium-term timeframe technical analysis goodbye. Yes, the higher-term timeframe levels very likely do still provide a source of edge, but at this point right here, I would not feel comfortable with that. So I think that solidifies my views on that, hopefully, as best as possible, as clean as possible. Basically, if you are in the very high term timeframes, it's pretty much as simple as this, and it's the same shit as before, basically. Below $35,000 on a higher term timeframe closure, bad. Very likely looking at a move towards the upper $20,000 territory, maybe like somewhere between there and about 30,000. Anywhere above about $45,000, very good. Looking for moves back up towards the mid to low $50,000 territory, and maybe even more over time. Until we get clarity on that situation for the very higher term timeframes, probably wouldn't be probably not making any major decisions myself. And I actually should denote over here that the leverage ratio, by the way, has taken the biggest downturn that we've seen in a single day since, when was this? Way back on over here on the great deleveraging of early December, actually. And then on top of that, another thing that's, I suppose, a little bit more on the short-term boolah-ish side would be, of course, the fear and greed indexes. We do see that the fear and greed index is once again within an extremely fearful zone. And well, it's not really actionable in and of itself, but it does provide a bit more of a bias on things, as does the funny rates here too. So with Bitcoin coming in about 15% off the lows, we do see that funny rates on a daily schedule are just ever so slightly negative, like not really worth talking about. And then on an hourly feed is pretty much 0%. So obviously some are going to be slightly positive, some are going to be slightly negative. This is still below parity, I should denote. So I suppose that would be a little bit more on the on the hopium side, I guess. But again, price action really matters most here. Underlying market dynamics are going to take a second seat to, unfortunately, global events, of which there's no way for me to know what the hell happens there. There's one thing that I feel quite confident about, and that's Bitcoin dominance will continue to rise like the fucking phoenix. So I think with all of that said, that is going to be it for the analysis of the day. And there you go. Hopefully that was helpful, sirs and sirs.